everybody. Welcome to GeekStorm. I'm Sean Hilton, owner of Comics Cube, founder of the Kokomo Con. Today I'm joined by our producer and director, Mike Dukes. Welcome back to the front of the camera.
Well, thank you.
Anything fun and exciting going on?
Gearing up for 4th of July.
Woohoo! Get your fireworks on. You know what? My neighborhood's already been fireworking. Just stuff going off all the time at random times.
Mine is not, oddly.
You're lucky, because I've just had weird stuff going on. Before we get too far into it, I want to take this opportunity to thank our good friends at Kokomo Toys and Collectibles for helping us put together this fine show that you're watching. This episode is filmed in the heart of downtown Kokomo, in Geek Street, on location, inside of Kokomo Toys and Collectibles. So all of the stuff that you see around us is available from Wednesday through Saturday, noon to 5. Stop on in and tell Todd and Amber that GeekStorm sent you. So, now that we've got some of the bills paid there. So, X-Men movie, Dark Phoenix, Phoenix Rising, whatever they're calling it.
They're pulling it from theaters already.
Is it already going away?
Yes.
Wow. So, it came out to the most abysmal opening of any X-Men movie ever.
Even worse than Last Stand, which everyone hails as, the worst X-Men movie.
Woo! No, that was. Past tense, this is the new bad boy. Gotta admit, I've not seen it yet.
I have not either.
Want to see it because I see almost all of these kind of movies. I never saw Elektra and I never saw Catwoman.
I didn't either.
But almost everything else I think I've seen, and I usually see it at the theater. A few sneak by. For us, this is a busy time of year. Gen Con, gaming, Origins. The hobbies outside of our hobbies start to take over, and the geek power is real strong in the middle of summer. So it gets a little tough to see. But the ratings from critics have been abysmal. The reviews from fans have been abysmal. I talked to Michael Allen Harrison, our usual co-host. He did see it. He said he gave it a 6 out of 10. And I haven't seen it, but it felt like he was being a little generous.
The whole thing with that particular storyline, one, it's already been done. Two, that is a huge tale in comic books, very well known, that took its time to build up to. In this day and age of Marvel taking 10 years to build up to Endgame, that is what the Phoenix tale needs. If you want to do the Phoenix saga, you got to build up to it.
Yeah.
And just to try and shove it, because I guess originally it was meant to be 2 movies.
Okay.
And then Fox freaked out, I guess, because the Disney merger was becoming a reality.
Imminent.
Yeah, so they were like, no, make it 1.
See, and I mean, that might be a matter of the coincidence, timing, and everything else that went on. We can all look at however we want. I'm a fan who likes to talk about this stuff. Obviously, that's why we do the show. And my thinking is they're going to reset the X-Men. And Marvel's going to get their hands on them. I think we're a few years out before we see anything major. I wouldn't be surprised if they don't start sneaking in some cameos, some hints, some suggestions.
I did read a rumor just this morning. I know you don't watch Game of Thrones.
I don't.
Okay, Daenerys,
she's the blonde,
the Dragon Queen.
She now in all the stills I've seen. So we're gonna side note here. She looks like the most horrible blonde ever. Does that on the show when it's live instead of stills? Does it look more natural?
A little.
Because it just every time I see a picture of her, it looks weird. Is she really blonde? Is that a wig? Is that
no? She's not blonde.
It looks weird to me. Something when I see stills.
Targaryens traditionally have white hair.
Oh, okay.
And
so it's supposed to be like an albino whitish blonde kind of a thing?
And because
I didn't know that.
I'm not exactly the best Game of Thrones expert. Long story short, her hairstyle changes with every victory. The hairstyle represents each victory, so it's kind of like a marking post.
Okay.
So every time she's won another victory, her braids and everything change.
I did not know that.
But yeah, it looks a little odd, a little stiff.
It just looks weird. Every time I see it, to me it always that looks like a bad wig. And for this show that's so popular and has so much. But we digress. Yes. Side note,
anyway,
back to X-Men.
So Daenerys, her right-hand handmaiden, the person who was killed by Cersei, I don't know the actress's name. Rumor has it they are looking at her to be Storm, to be put in Black Panther 2, to start seeding things in.
Interesting. Well, in the comics, it's a well-known fact that for a short while, Storm ends up married to Black Panther, and it didn't last incredibly long, but it was probably their two most iconic and popular characters of color coming together, and so it's kind of a powerhouse mix. But you got Wakanda leader, strong-willed guy. She was, even though she's a mutant, the origin is she was praised as a goddess in Africa. So that mixed together, plus the X-Men politics versus Wakanda politics, bad things are going to happen. So I don't believe that T'Challa was stepping out on her. I'm not saying that's what happened. TMZ, they may have insinuated something like that, but I'm saying I think that he was a solid guy and was.
He's always seemed like a solid guy to me, but those TMZ dudes, they get in places.
Man, crazy stuff. So yeah, I don't know. My thing with this franchise is if you're going to do like these stories, you need to seed them a long time out. I don't need you shoving down the Dark Phoenix story, which is an amazing story by Claremont and Byrne. Pick up the trade paperback at Comics Cubed in downtown Kokomo. Classic storyline, but as you said, it was seeded. There was other stories going on. You slowly, in the background of other stories, saw her developing these powers, and it didn't start off as a maniacal thing that happened in 2.5 hours of screen time. It took a year of time in the background before it came to fruition, and then was 3 or 4 issues of direct storytelling about that, including like an oversized giant kind of thing.
Well, at least with the previous movies, you got to know Jean Grey through 3 movies before that one.
Yeah.
And this one, you saw her once, kind of got to see her just act, period, or do anything, and then suddenly this movie, it's all her.
And this was also a really strange franchise, because you have the original Patrick Stewart 3 X-Men movies, which was ruined with the 3rd one, which was the Phoenix story. Then we kind of have this weird reboot that's got your Fassbender and I can't remember.
James McAvoy.
Thank you, McAvoy, going on. But it's a time loop thing, so it's back in time. So I've always been curious. I've never bothered to look into it. Are they supposed to be like one thing? Because different characters are played by different people, but Hugh Jackman is Wolverine through all of it, but Storm is a different character. So I've never understood if it's supposed to be a singular continuity with weird stuff, or if this was just a completely different franchise. The whole thing, the first one of the new franchise, the Cuban Missile Crisis-y kind of a thing or whatever it was, I thought was well done. And after that,
First Class was a good movie.
All over the place. Well, I mean, Kevin Bacon. But after that, it was...
And Apocalypse was just a dumpster fire.
Horrible to watch. The thing that Mike did tell me, the only spoiler I asked for was, do I at least get one more slow motion Quicksilver song? And if that's the case, what's the song? No. In fact, he's in it very little, and he's not even in the final battle, according to what I've been told by Mike. So one of my favorite parts of the last 2 movies is the slow motion song, and Quicksilver steals those scenes. Such a great, fun character, and then didn't get used hardly at all in the last movie. Except for, I think, at the beginning where they blow up the X-Mansion, which is great.
He just happens to be walking along, eating a Twinkie, and
So it's a little that bummed me out. If that's true, and I believe Mike's telling me the truth, that's.
I mean, I get it. You don't want to, keep going back to the same well over and over. But then again, you're doing the Phoenix Saga again, so you're kind of already doing that.
There's not much water left in that well, and what's left is a little muddy and murky. And Marvel's probably going to have to do it themselves at some point just to do it right. But hopefully they'll at least spend 4 or 5 movies, introduce Jean Grey, and slowly build it up, give her a power, have the thing happen in the 2nd or 3rd movie, and then spend another 2 movies before we actually see the culmination of what happens.
Well, then also with Disney Plus, we don't know exactly how we're going to mix and match that and the big screen movies. They could go back and forth with different. I mean, you've already got Falcon and Winter Soldier popping over there, Loki, Scarlet Witch, Vision, So who's
amongst others.
Yeah, who's to say?
So, has Hawkeye gone any further? We've heard any rumors about Hawkeye?
Haven't heard anything more.
That's one I would like to see. That would be one that I think would be interesting. Been hearing rumors about test shots of Black Widow popping up finally, or some footage of that, but not much is known about that.
Just her facing off against some guy in some kind of armor.
Yeah, so we'll see how that all goes. Should be interesting. Right now, my thinking is that I'm hearing a lot of people say because this Phoenix movie has failed, that is proof of superhero fatigue. Yet, we have just next week Spider-Man getting ready to open.
And its reviews thus far are
off the charts.
It's got like a 91% Rotten Tomatoes right now.
And tracking right now with pre-sales at approximately $150 million for the opening, which is probably going to be a good chunk of the entire movie's budget in 1 week. I'm going to guess that movie's somewhere between 150 to 200 million, not including advertising. And so my thing is, it's not superhero fatigue. It's crappy movie fatigue. It's bad trailer fatigue. It doesn't matter anymore whether it's just a superhero movie. And that's always been the case. There have been superhero movies for the last 20 or 30 years.
They want to put a label on things, and it's unnecessary. R-rated movies, they don't sell. They do if they're well written and well acted.
It proved it.
Yeah.
Deadpool has proved it. So, Conan, the original, has proved it to me over and over again, especially when Conan the Destroyer was PG-13. We saw what happened with that.
Horror movies don't sell, and yet
looking forward to that sequel. So
they want to slap these, they want to make excuses, basically. Oh, our movie didn't perform well. Well, it's because of this.
Yeah.
Not because we failed at our job and didn't put a good product. It's just because this. No.
Yeah, the very first, I am your market for that movie, and I am an easy sell. Even though it's got horrible reviews, as long as it sticks around for another week or two, I'm probably going to take my mom to see this pile of crap. And I'll go and we'll see it, we'll have our popcorn, and we'll have fun. But that first trailer they showed made me go, oh no. If I wasn't a hardcore fan, there is no way. You know what? Netflix or whatever picks it up is the only way I'd be watching this pile of crap. So, that's kind of sad.
And then it's funny, on the musical side, I'm a big Hans Zimmer fan.
Oh, yeah.
He did all the Dark Knight movies, and then he came back and did Batman vs. Superman. And then after that, he said, I don't want to do superhero movies anymore. Who did this latest X-Men movie score?
Was it him? Oh, poor guy.
I bought it.
It was a paycheck.
It's great.
Was it good?
Which is why I'm curious to see the movie. I'm like, man, the music's pretty good. What went wrong?
Williams can't do all of it anymore. He's up there.
He was already doing one movie a year, and I think after this Star Wars one, actually, assuming he makes it, I think the next Indiana Jones movie will probably be his last thing he does.
Oh man, that'll be a sad day when that composer goes. Hey, over at Comics Cubed, we've got the newest and last issue of War of the Realms. And I know you don't read a lot of comics, which is unfortunate. You definitely should check out more. War of the Realms was the spring-summer multi-platform style crossover that Marvel did. Platform's not correct, but it went through all of their books. Everything got touched by it. And they did it pretty much every other week. This was a bi-weekly. Not only did it ship on time the entire time, but they knocked out like 7 different one-shots and miniseries, all of them ending on time with this issue, wrapping everything up in a beautiful bow, beautiful art all the way through, consistency all the way through. Took like 12 years of Thor's story and finally gave it the culmination it deserved in bringing it in touch with everyone in the Marvel Universe. So I was really, really blown away with Jason Aaron's take on this. He has been the writer behind Thor for quite some time. He is the one that ended up doing Jane Foster as the female Thor and did an amazing job with that. This ends in a very satisfying manner. If you were to walk away from Thor comics after this, I think you would feel really, really good about the whole thing. But then, of course, what it does, and it does it well, is it sets up 2 or 3 new series It sets up the new, just regular Thor continuing on. Sets up a new Thor book that looks to be like Old Man Thor, or an older Thor. That looks really pretty cool. There's going to be a spin-off of a Punisher book called Punisher Kill Crew, where I think he's going around. The idea is that all the realms invaded Midgard, Earth, from all the different Asgardian realms, and that's what they were fighting. Well, I've got a feeling that Punisher is going to have a small crew of guys that are going to go around taking out all the stragglers who got left behind or found a way to not be in the final battle, the baddies, and track them down. Loki, who was eaten in like the very first issue, Laufey, his father, the frost giant, like picks him up and eats him. So in this one, spoilers, he cuts himself out of Laufey's belly to reclaim his title, not only as A, being alive, but B, going, so he was my daddy there was the king of the frost giants. That makes me the king of the frost giants. So it's all king's dead, long live the king, baby. So there's going to be a new Loki series coming out. They killed off a bunch of the Valkyries, including the most famous Valkyrie from Marvel, which is Brunhilde, I believe. And
but now isn't Jane Foster?
Jane Foster is going to be the new Valkyrie of some sort. So that's coming out. That looks great. And then probably the biggest reveal is the final page of the book. You got to have some big thing. Is Odin bowing down before Thor and finally just saying, listen, after all this is said and done, all hail All-Father Thor. That's always been All-Father Odin since the 60s. And so Odin, who just got saved by Thor, him and his wife, is finally like, you know what, kid, it's time for me to step down. You're the new guy.
Is that a destroyer arm?
Yes. Basically, yes. His arm was off. He gets Mjolnir back. He hasn't had Mjolnir since 4 or 5 years now. He recreates Mjolnir out of like a storm that he creates, the whole weather thing, in the sun. He uses the sun as the forge to create Mjolnir, to have it return. And then, of course, Malekith, the evil guy, is like, you can create all you want, you still can't pick it up. And he walks over and he's doing the speech as he's going over. He goes, you know what? On this whole thing I have learned, I am unworthy. He goes, and if I am the Lord of anything, I am the Lord. So he picks up of the unworthy. And therefore it makes us all worthy. It gives you chills. It was really well done. Lines up a whole bunch of other projects. Trade paperbacks will be coming out soon. I highly recommend, even if you don't read comics a lot, check it out. If you're not going to buy it from us, buy it from somewhere. Just don't buy it from a big box store. Screw them. Go to your local library. Libraries carry them. Digital, they have usually. So check it out. War of the Realms. Jason Aaron did an amazing job, and I think it is well worth your time.
Do you think...
I think a lot.
So you've got this, World of Realms, and Marvel and DC both. Every year, it's a new event or
absolutely.
Events
Yes.
that goes
Multiple events.
across multiple comics.
This was the spring-summer event. Now this will just line up for another event. That'll be our big summer event that'll take us into like December. We'll start in the middle of summer and go towards the end of the year. I don't even know what it is yet because I try not to.
So for this one, you had 6 issues of War of the Realms.
Yes.
And then you had one-shots, you said, as
You
well?
had a ton of one-shots, too, and miniseries.
And then did those bleed into just the regular standalone issues?
Some of them did. Fantastic Four did it. Because they did so many minis, it did kind of take it out of everybody had to do the crossover in their main books. Fantastic Four did a great one because they're from New York, and New York is one of the big battlegrounds, Marvel's kind of empire. And that every different part of the world was being attacked by one of the different realms. And so America was being attacked by the frost giants. And so New York was under siege from frost giants and dark elf assassins. And they showed up on Yancey Street. And as soon as they showed up on, the Thing is from Yancey Street. It's kind of his, Brooklyn kind of a thing.
Boy from Yancey.
And you see just the normal people like pulling out rolling pins and like, no. Rest of New York, the rest of this, Manhattan, you go to the island, whatever. But you come down our street and that's an ass whooping. And so little old ladies like getting out their brooms, go beat up on giants and stuff. They make them tough on Yancey Street, I can tell you that. So, good stuff.
But it made me think, I know years ago that was a complaint, was that you would have these big events,
Yes.
and it would spread into the other comics, and unless you bought all these other comics, you didn't get the whole tale.
Yeah.
Which then makes me think of a correlation with video games. A lot of companies, instead of doing just single-player standalones, are doing these multiplayer things that a lot of people don't want. Sure, some people do, but a lot don't. They just want the single story.
A lot of DLC.
So it just makes me wonder,
This one was a lot better. Yes, in days gone by, the summer events have always been a giant crossover where you had to jump from series to series with checklists and stuff. And in fact, I know what the next one is. It's Absolute Carnage. Absolute Carnage is coming out, and it does have a bunch of stuff. But it looks like a lot of those are going to be weird little one-shots and annuals and stuff like that, too. So we'll see how it goes. But speaking of video games, so I believe it was EA. In fact, it was EA. EA did the last Star Wars video game that got the big brouhaha because they put in loot crates inside a mainstream AAA game title. For those who don't know, and I don't know why you would if you're watching this, but Loot Crate is something, it's on a lot of the phone games, the pay-for-play phone games where you get some mystery box and you can open it up and then you buy the box or whatever, and it opens up and you get some kind of bonus. And that's fine for me, as my opinion, on phone games and free games. If you want to spend money on something that is such a low-level entry format and is free or was a 99-cent purchase, and you want to upgrade your experience by paying a couple of dollars, that's fine. EA sells you a $60.
Was it Battlefront? Was that the
Battlefront?
game?
Yeah. Star Wars Battlefront sells you a $60 plus regular version. Then if you want the limited edition or the Game Year Pass edition, those are all more expensive. And then on top of it, inside of that game, they put in these microtransactions where if you pay, you can continue to get upgrades. It's definitely a pay-for-win platform, though they try to claim it's not. Several countries have now started hammering down on this, either outlawing it, regulating it, taxing it, things of that nature. So there was just a thing that happened recently over in the UK, basically the version of you going before Congress to talk Zuckerberg or whoever getting talked down to by people who don't know what they're talking about. I love that. They did that over in the UK version. And so they've got your little panel of EA people. And one of the very first ones I saw was a guy going, all right, so what do you think is the ethical responsibility of a company that engages in microtransactions / loot crates? And the head of EA, or the first person to speak, is like, excuse me, sir, we don't refer to them as loot crates. We refer to them as mystery mechanics. And then went on to explain that the whole mystery box phenomenon that's going on right now in the real world of subscription boxes and mystery boxes are so popular that this is what people are demanding. This is what they want. They want these mystery mechanics and the semantics. Everybody was like, can you, seriously, that's just coming out of your face right now. You are saying all of this and you actually believe it? No. It's just like people want to redefine words now because it's inconvenient. The truth is inconvenient to people. And so therefore, they just redefine their words, and that somehow redefines their realities. And it's like, it's not raining out right now because that's going to be inconvenient for me right now. So it's going to be non-plus sunny today. And it's like, what? So yeah, they're trying to get around this thing, and it's like, guys, you literally have to pay to buy a box, a digital thing on my computer-y console system, to then have it open up and show me, you got the Vader helmet instead of the TIE Fighter helmet that you're hoping for your TIE Fighter guy.
Well, that's why the one that's coming out in November, they made it a point of saying, no microtransactions, single player only. What you buy, you got the game.
Yeah. It's bad enough that it used to be back when we were younger and we bought our crappy Atari 2600 cartridge, or if you went to Nintendo. I skipped the first Nintendos and Nintendo generations and went straight to the Sega. I was a Sega guy. I like that little Sonic-y dude. He was my dude. You bought the game, you could play it.
Yeah.
The truth is, most of them never had an ending. I don't think you just played until you got sick of it, and Sonic would run around in little circles. Mario had an ending, but most of the games you just played to play. Then we got into these more advanced games. They looked better, and you played until you got to the ending. And a lot of games started having actual endings, and that was cool. But since I'd say probably, the 90s, we started having, definitely 2000s, we've started having this downloadable content, this DLC, season passes. So here's the game.
Well, it started just with making your character look different outfits.
Well, that was kind of microtransactions. Or I guess that was DLC.
But then it started becoming whole new scenarios and...
Nope. You're right. It started like, play as Elvis. Yeah.
You want to have the blue costume instead of the red? Here you go.
Yeah, now you can play the whole game. And all it is just this. But now you're right. It's like here, basically it's almost like we designed the game and then we had 15% more that we could have put in. We literally just held that back. And no, look, here's a little update that goes with it. So now you can do the Sasquatch Arctic mission. Now you can do the Loch Ness diving mission.
I mean, I get it to a point. They sell that one unit, and that if there's nothing else left to it, then that's it. They made their money and they make nothing else until their next game.
Well, with the golden exception, Skyrim, which did have a bunch of DLC, but they also just keep going, oh, and now it's over here for the Switch, and now it's over here for this, and now it's I think you can play Skyrim on most of the refrigerators now that have TVs in them.
Well, the other thing is Skyrim, after they stopped doing anything with it, other people went in and started modding it themselves.
Yeah, I've seen that.
So that is literally the game that keeps on giving.
It doesn't stop. They made so much money off of that game.
But, for most of these games, if person A, consumer A, buys the game, that's it. You get no more money from them until you spend a buttload of money to create the next game. But if you've got those microtransactions, you're continually able to bleed them a little bit of money, so you're still getting money trickling in. Yeah. So from a business standpoint, I get it. Yeah, that would be attractive. But from a consumer standpoint, it's
something like Fallout.
I mean, it's not a big deal if it doesn't affect me and my game. But if it's a multiplayer game and person A has the money to spend on all this crap and he's playing with me and suddenly he's just dominating because of that, then it's...
The pay-to-play situation can get a little annoying. You got to be careful with that. So, hey, also at Comics Cube this week, people donated some money. We have this giant stack of kid-friendly, all-ages comics from Globetrotters to Yogi Bear to Walt Disney to Andy the Panda. I don't know, 20 or 30 books there. The first teacher to come into Comics Cube and prove to me that they are a teacher gets these for free. You have to just prove that you're a teacher. That's it. And it's not free with a purchase. It's not free with the donation. If you come in, you prove to me that you're an educator and you're the first one that comes in, then you get this stack of books for free. My customers have already helped me offset the price by donating a couple of dollars. We get stuff in all the time like this that could sell in the store but would sell really slowly and isn't something that's in high demand. But in a classroom where these are off to the side, where I think you might be able to help get a kid excited about reading, I think that's really important. And so stop in at Comics Cube to 121 East Sycamore. Prove to us you're a teacher. Teach us fractions. Teach me about contractions. Teach me TOO versus TO. And I'm gonna hook you up with some free comics.
But what if you're a mustache twirling teacher who only wants those because you're a collector and have no intention of letting any students get near them?
I mean, if you can trick me into that, I guess then you're a really good teacher. The truth is, I don't think there's probably a couple in here that do have some collectible value. There's some stuff from the Silver Age almost. There's like a 12-cent book right there of Walt Disney. But the condition on these is meant to be read. These aren't in great shape. They're not a collectible. They're perfect to put in the hands of kids who might tear them up. That's absolutely fine. And at the cost of free, then I think the classroom can probably use those. That's not going to hurt. On another note, which is not for sale at Comics Cube, but something I'm really interested in checking out. This has been around for a little while. It is a war game, not D&D tabletop. It is a miniatures game called Rangers of Shadow Deep by the creator Joseph McCullough, who created a really popular miniature game called Frostgrave. This is a skirmish-based game, which means in the world of war game miniatures, Warhammer 40K, Warhammer Fantasy, and some of those, you use big blocks of troops, or you use 50 or 60 troops, maybe more, all kinds of stuff. in the world of skirmish gaming, for the most part, you're using small bands, small teams. So a full army of Rangers of Shadow Deep would be less than 10 figures. Very likely 5 to 7 figures realistically. It's how many little miniatures you would have to put together and paint. Now, there are quite a few skirmish games out there, but what makes this one, I think, what has drawn me to it and what I think makes it more interesting is this is a miniature game that can be played solo. So you don't even have to play against an opponent. And when you do play with another person, you play it co-op together. And I think that's really interesting.
That is interesting.
Not because I don't have friends that play these games. I have plenty of friends that I can play miniature games with. But sometimes you're at the house, you want to play by yourself. You want options. And this is, or maybe, you don't have a lot of friends. Maybe you're in some part of the world. And
actually, I see that a lot online is people, it's not that they don't have any friends, it's just they don't know anyone who plays game A, B, or C. Which is why online gaming has become so prevalent, because if you live in this country and you don't know anyone else who plays it, maybe you can find someone in a different country. So if you can play, actually solo just tabletop RPGs are...
They're starting to become a little more popular,
Yeah.
it looks like. Almost like really advanced versions of Choose Your Own Adventure with dice.
Cthulhu's got, I think, 2 or 3 out already.
I've got one of the originals that one of the few things I ever kept, which they've remade. It's like an island or something. I can't remember what it's called, but the original was pretty chunky. The new one's still decent size, but it's not as big as the original. But this, again, as solo, and how it works is the rule set itself is pretty simple. You have enough points, you build a ranger, and he goes out into the Shadow Deep. The idea being Kingdom was, fantasy kind of D&D style kingdom. Darkness comes to the land, something weird's going on, there's a mystery, and horrible things have happened. The king is sending in a couple of scouting groups to figure out what's going on, and that is the Rangers that are going in to check this out. So you're going to play a Ranger as your main boss leader character, and underneath him you'll have underlings, his companions, and you will build up those guys. And after each adventure, you do some bookkeeping, and it's pretty light bookkeeping, but basically your guys can level up, they can get treasure, they can get better stuff, they can get killed, they can get maimed. So it's a living kind of ongoing campaign. And what's neat about it is basically it's scenario based. So every scenario is going to tell you approximately how to lay out your table, where things should go, and then there's a deck of cards, and then during the event phase you will pull a card. And this is a standard deck. They just tell you to pull out all the red cards or all the black cards or all the spades or whatever. And so it's usually like a stack of 10 cards or whatever, one suit basically. And at the end of it, you'll just randomly shuffle up, take one of those cards, refer to the book, and it will tell you the event that happened in that one. So that way things are always going a little differently. It gives you the rules for how the monsters always react. So they're always going to go in a certain kind of way, which after a while, I suppose, and I haven't played it yet, I'm working towards playing it, you might be able to work out some tactics to kind of play the game against itself in that manner. But if you're playing in the true sense of it, you're out there, you're adventuring in the darkness, trying to figure out this mystery. And so this book contains those rules. Pretty rule light system. For if you've played miniature war games before, this is going to be pretty simple.
I would think that would have an easier entry point than something like 40K or Warhammer, where you've got, that can be intimidating. If you watch other people playing, you're like, wait, all of those are yours?
Yeah.
Yeah, you painted all those. Yeah. That can get expensive really fast. That can also be a time sink. Something like this, if it's only, like you said, like 10.
Oh, 10 is max. 10 is crazy numbers. That's like you've really built up your group. As I said, 5 to 7 is probably legitimately what you're going to be playing. And then on top of that, what's really kind of cool about this game, unlike those other games, like if you play officially at a Warhammer tournament, you have to use their figures. This, you can buy 5 different figures from 5 different companies. Nobody cares. It's your game. So, you can represent it however you want. And I've looked at all kinds of different stuff. You could even use different scales. Just remember that when you build terrain, because that's one thing you would have to do with this, is you would have to build terrain. So it's kind of a hobby unto itself. If you used a bigger scale of figure, you would have to scale your terrain up, otherwise it might look a little silly. But yeah, I'm really looking forward to playing with this. I've got a couple of friends that are going to give it a shot. I think we're going to work together and then get together a day and all of us play through it like singly, and then maybe then at the end come together and all of us play it co-op and go through the scenarios and check it out.
Cool.
So yeah. Well, I think that's our time for today. Covered some fun, interesting things, and if you've got anything you want to talk about, check out our YouTube channel. Leave us some remarks there, or our Facebook page. You can find us at GeekStorm, and we would love to hear from you. If you have anything you want us to talk about, reach on. We'll tell you about our Patreon sometime, maybe once we create that, which will be, I don't know what, but I'm sure something. It's always something.
Could happen.
Anything you want to finish up with? You want to touch on last minute?
One thing.
One thing?
There's I can't remember the name of them. It's 6 books, young adult, about Sherlock Holmes' daughter, and she's the one doing all these little adventures.
Okay.
They're making it into a movie. Millie Bobby Brown, the person who plays 11 on Stranger Things.
And Crazy Person Godzilla.
I don't think she's been officially cast yet, but that's who they're pursuing to be Sherlock's daughter. But that wasn't the big news item. The big news item, when they announced it, was that Henry Cavill, Superman, is being cast as Sherlock Holmes. So while reading through this article, like, oh, that's cool. And then she, who would be the main character, is just kind of offhandedly, yeah, her. It just, a little funny.
That's awesome.
We're still seeing that sort of thing even now.
So Henry Cavill, as the supporting character, gets the mainstream info, and wow. I think I have seen those out and about in the wild, but I haven't read one yet.
I had never heard of them until I read that article.
I'll check out just about anything. I'll have to check that. If we track it down, I'll try Hoopla. Hoopla is a great way to find stuff. Our library uses that as their digital thing. So I just got to figure out what it's called. Send me a link if you got it. And I'll try to find one. All right, everybody. Thank you for checking out GeekStorm. I'm Sean Hilton. I was joined today by my good friend Mike Dukes. Filmed on location at Kokomo Toys and Collectibles in the heart of downtown Kokomo, Geek Street. Located at 111 East Sycamore. Be groovy, everybody.